Hi, this is Mike Ignatoski, the creator of GreenFox, the spreadsheet that uses Excel programming to make it behave like an electronic baseball score sheet or scorebook, and it automatically computes the game stats, which can be a big time saver. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you find this video helpful. In this video, I'd like to cover some of the GreenFox 2.0 features that are new or enhancements that just pertain to the score sheet itself, not to the new league or stats mode, but strictly to the score sheet itself. The first thing I want to mention that's different about the score sheet in version 2.0 is that the 11th inning is now hidden by default. It's up now included in the show hide extra innings 11 through 20, and that was done pretty much just to give more screen space to the score sheet and the stats area. Which leads me to the next feature, which is the batting stats now include intentional walks, which is here. It is a subset of walks, meaning if a player had one intentional walk and one walk, the walk stat would show 2 and the intentional walk would show 1. So the walk stat doesn't change at all, but now it just in the intentional walks it'll show if there are any of those. Also down in the pitching stats, there's a new column at the end. PC stands for pitch count. Right now GreenFox doesn't calculate the pitch count, but I can see that it might add that, or there might be versions that would add that. So it's really a kind of a placeholder right now. Another thing on the score sheet are these zoom buttons up here. And I add these zoom buttons just because it's easy as far as fine-tuning your zoom level. I was trying to make sure that all my columns for my stat sheet could be in view. And when you use the Excel buttons down here, by default, they change it by 10%. You can move the slider a little bit, but it's not easy to set those just right. So these +1, -1 will let you zoom in or out 1% at a time, and it's just pretty much a lazy convenience that I added for myself. The next few enhancements I want to show have to do with the actual scorekeeping game flow. So in this spreadsheet I have the Cheers lineup, and down here I have the Looney Tunes lineup. Let me hide these pitching stats. And one of the things that changed, let's say Diane Chambers gets up, but as soon as I click this first score sheet block here, I get this message that says the starting pitcher for the home team doesn't appear to be listed. Correct it, and maybe check the visiting starter also. And sure enough, I'm going to cancel out of this thing, but that's just warning me that there's no pitcher listed here. And I've done that several times in games that I've played, that I just forget to put the starting pitchers in there. So that's what this is about. So I will enter those now. This is Bugs Bunny going up against Sam Malone. And while I'm doing that, I'll mention that down here in the options tab, this game option number 7 is just what we were running into, which is an alert that says you're missing at least one starting pitcher. And like all the options, you could turn this off if you don't want it on. That's fine, but by default it comes on and lets you know if you start your game. Basically, once you click in any of these leadoff hitter cells, that's when it looks and sees, hey, does it look like these are empty? So that's that. So let's get back to the game and say Diane Chambers does hit this triple. And let's say Norm hits a sacrifice fly, or fly to right that would be a sacrifice fly, but the right fielder drops the ball and Norm ends up on first. So that brings into play these two new options on the batter result form. They're basically sacrifice and error. So here's the sacrifice fly plus error, and there's also the sacrifice hit plus error. But they work the same way as these hit plus error. So I'm going to say sacrifice fly plus error. I'll say the error was on the right fielder, and I'm going to change this to a one base error because Norm's a slow runner. Then I'll say OK. So you see now it's a sacrifice fly plus E9, gives him an RBI and puts him on first base. So that's another new feature. The last few enhancements I wanted to demonstrate here have to do with player substitutions. So let's go down, switch sheets down to the lineups sheet, and the lineups is where we have the bench and the bullpen players if we want to use that. And what you can see here is on each bench I filled in this position field with a list of positions for each player. I just made these up and it's totally optional, but I want to show how that comes into play. Another thing that's new here that probably doesn't really matter is that the bullpen and the bench now can have up to 48 players on them, which was pretty much done just to accommodate historical season rosters and really should have no impact on free play mode. So let's go back to the score sheet here. And let's say that when Norm got to first base, he was limping or pulled a muscle, so we need to have a pinch runner for him. So I'm going to click the pinch runner area, and here's our substitution window. And you can see here it now lists those positions that maybe we want to look at that if we want to know who plays first base, because Norm was playing first and we got to take him out. So we could look at this and say, oh, Nick Tortelli, he plays first, so I'll pick him. So that's how I envision this position being used, but like I said, it's totally optional. Let's say that Nick goes crazy and tries to steal and gets thrown out. So now we got one out, nobody out. Let's say Sam Malone comes up, he gets hit by the pitch. So now we're going to have a pinch runner. But since he's the pitcher, actually I'm thinking, well, I want the pinch runner to be whoever's going to come in to pitch, since I don't want to lose two players on this substitution. So that brings me to the next feature of this sub window is now when you're in the lineup and you click either the pinch runner or the pinch hitter area for the substitution window, you now have the option to choose the bullpen players. That's this kind of purplish pinkish button. So I say, okay, show me the bullpen. So now here are the bullpen guys, Robin Colcord and Evan Drake, and I'm going to say I want Robin Colcord to come in and pinch run because he's also going to stay in and pitch. You could also use this in a more practical sense of a pitcher that might be used as a pinch runner sometimes, and strictly as a pinch runner, but this allows the pitchers that are used for either to substitute for another pitcher to bat, to pinch hit, or to pinch run. So that's what I'm going to do. Say Robin Colcord's coming in to pinch run or replace Sam Malone. The last thing I want to mention has to do with changing your starting lineups. Let's say I had this lineup as a template and I just pasted the whole thing in, and I forgot that Carlo Tortelli is hurt this game and can't play. And I should have done it at the very start of the game, but I just noticed it. So I want to swap her out. So what I'll do is I'll click on her name in the starting lineup, and it prompts me and says, hey, do you want to choose a starting lineup replacement for Carlo Tortelli? And I say yes. So then it brings up the sub window, the same one we just saw. And I'm going to look over here and say, oh yeah, Carlo was playing short, and Lilith can play short, so I'm going to choose Lilith to play there. And say OK. And so what that does is it doesn't add Lilith underneath like a regular sub, but it actually puts her in where Carla was. So it replaces Carla with Lilith. And now, if I wanted to go and look at the lineup, you can see now Lilith isn't in the sub list, but Carla is, because they just swap spaces. So that's the way you can now change your starting lineup with people on your bench without, basically conveniently is what I'll say. So, and that's the last feature I want to cover of different ways to handle those substitutions, whether it be using that position list or using your bullpen players as pinch runners or pinch hitters, or swapping out somebody in your starting lineup with somebody on your bench. Well, that wraps up this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found it informative and helpful. Please feel free to leave me some comments and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be alerted when I post new videos. I hope that the GreenFox spreadsheet will save you time in keeping score and doing the game stats of your games, resulting in giving you more time to play the games that you want to play.